What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another Tottenham update. Starting off with Conor Gallagher of Chelsea. Romano says that Ange Postecoglou at Spurs appreciates Conor Gallagher. It is true. Chelsea would sell for a good proposal. Felix Johnston saying that Tottenham manager Ange Postecoglou is a huge fan of Conor Gallagher. And Football London saying that Tottenham hold an interest in Chelsea midfielder Conor Gallagher. So would you like to see him at Spurs?
I actually think he's underrated because he's had a poor season at Chelsea, but then who hasn't? He was brilliant at Palace last season, and I actually think he would fit in really well in Postecoglou's system as one of the eights. I think he's technically a good player. He's a really hard worker, which has been one of the reasons why in the latter parts of the season he was one of the first names on the team sheet for Chelsea, it seemed, because at least he had the basics. So I actually think if you can get a good deal for him under market value, he has the potential to grow as well into a better player. I think 23 or 24 years of age. I think there are better players out there, but I think in terms of a player who can marry the fundamentals of hard work and giving everything with some technical ability, he is pretty strong in those aspects. I do think people like Maddison, Eze, blah blah blah, are better players than him, 100%. But I think he would. I don't think he would come in and be a lot. I think he would come in and actually be a pretty good option in those central midfield areas. Yeah, but all depends on the price.
Absolutely. I mean, I really like him from his time at Crystal Palace. I was saying that, you know, if Chelsea don't want to use him, then we should definitely be trying to go in for a player like Conor Gallagher at the end of his Crystal Palace tenure. I mean, this year at Chelsea did kind of put me off a little bit, but I think that what you're saying is right. It's like no one was good in this Chelsea team this year. So I think he would be a good acquisition for Spurs. But I think to bring him in, I don't think it should be him or a Maddison, him or an Eze. I think it should be with them, because I'm not sure if Conor Gallagher has the same amount of creativity as them and able to pull off the same kind of numbers as them.
I think you make this signing if it's to supplement a bigger signing like Maddison or Eze. You sign them for 40-50 million, and maybe if you can get Gallagher on a 20 million deal or something, or 25 million deal, a bit cheaper as a squad option, but also the ability to step in whenever called upon and also start lots of games. I think that's why you make it. If we're signing him instead of a Maddison or an Eze, then I'm not happy with it.
Absolutely. Let's move on. Let's talk about Roger Ibanez. Longari saying that Tottenham are looking at Roma defender Roger Ibanez. We brought you a few Ibanez stories yesterday as well, but it seems to be hotting up a little bit.
Yeah, it looks like there is serious interest. And actually, I was thinking about it a bit more. And some people say, I read a few of the comments saying Ibanez and Romero would be like Ramos and Pepe partnering each other. I'm like, well, that wasn't a bad partnership, was it, Ramos and Pepe? Yes, they were two hotheads who could get sent off, but kind of that craziness also made them a great partnership. And maybe if we can harness Romero and Ibanez together, maybe it wouldn't be as bad as we thought.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I never thought about it like a Ramos and a Pepe. Yeah. They did get a fair few sending offs, both of them, to be fair. I think Ramos is the most sent off player in history or something like that.
Something like that.
So, I mean, I wouldn't like to see that at Spurs this year per se, because I think if we go down to 10 men, we're not like Real Madrid where we can probably handle ourselves with 10 men. We're not exactly at that level. So I don't know. It's a difficult one. I think when you're looking at that in isolation, that centre-back duo and this centre-back duo, I think there are comparisons, but we're just not on Real Madrid's level.
Of course not, but I think but you got to also remember they're two young centre-backs with capabilities to grow together. And I kind of feel like as much as they could maybe early on, it could be chaos. Once they get settled and get used to each other, maybe it could be a partnership that can work. And they are two very feisty centre-backs, but both as well have quality on the ball. And that's very important.
Well, you're swaying me more towards that. I mean, look, if that's what Ange wants to do and if that's the way he wants to go, then I'll fully back it. But I just think it could be a recipe for disaster in some games, that's for sure. Especially in the games where we're really come under the cosh, like against the Man Cities and the Arsenals and against really good attacking sides, playing that high line with two hotheads there can be could get dangerous.
I agree with that. I do agree with that.
Let's talk about Harvey Barnes now. Ben Jacobs saying, I think Harvey Barnes to Spurs is going to grow legs over the coming weeks. We've spoken about Barnes a few times. I think we're both kind of in agreement that he's a good player. We just don't know if he's the right fit to really replace Son once he leaves.
Yeah, it's all about the money. How much is he going to cost? If it's 40 million, I think you can get players of Barnes' quality for less than 40 million. Do I think I want a player of Barnes' quality. I do want someone of his quality to come in because I do think he's a high quality player. He scored 13 league goals last season. He's not necessarily going to be able to replace Son effectively, but like 13 goals, if he brought that to Tottenham, that's nothing to be sniffed at. But I just think for that price, you can get a younger player probably from across Europe who's probably a bit faster, a bit better at dribbling, maybe not as good at finishing as Barnes, but I think might be better fitted to what Postecoglou wants, which is players who are really wide, like to take people on. I think Barnes is quick and good taking people on, but he's not like, that's not a speciality. I think the speciality is more running in behind and his finishing ability into the far corner and getting in those goal-scoring positions. I think that's what he's really good at. I think maybe Postecoglou from his wide players wants more players who are better at taking people on and providing crosses and creating chances rather than scoring, getting those goal-scoring positions, albeit maybe he could play in that inside left role, but then that's usually for one of the number 8s, if you understand. So I don't know if he's the best fit on that case, but I think quality-wise, I think definitely you can work with it.
Do you have any names in mind who could be that role that you're talking about?
I mean, not necessarily attainable ones, but someone like a Matoma, I think, would be a better fit in terms of how Postecoglou wants to play with his wide players. People who are really good at taking people on and really good in one-on-one situations rather than a Barnes who is decent, but it's not like a speciality.
Fair. Let's move on. Let's talk about Jadon Sancho. Ben Jacobs again saying we can refer to Sancho as a target, and we can certainly say there is interest in him and it is real, but let's see how it progresses because there are complications over the fee and the wages, and that's exactly what we've been alluding to over the last couple of days.
Yeah, essentially, I mean, I can't see those complications being something that can be overcome, to be honest, especially given the fact that United aren't going to really want to sell to Tottenham as much as they might want to sell, but given that we're probably, even though we finished 8th, they probably do see us still as a rival, and they're not going to want to make it easy for us to get him. So I don't see him going for cheap. Wages-wise, if Sancho can be willing to take the necessary pay cut, it will be necessary to join Tottenham. I mean, I think this deal would just be too difficult to do.
I don't even know if that's the situation. I mean, you're seeing clubs within the Premier League sell to rivals a bit. I mean, you're looking at the Kai Havertz, Arsenal trying to go for him. I think they're open to selling at a normal price. You're looking
They're not. That's the whole thing. Our Chelsea want a bigger fee.
A big fee. I mean, they're willing to sell to them, though, even for a big fee.
I'm not saying United are willing to sell. I'm saying they're not going to make it easy.
Yeah, fair enough. And then you're looking at Kovacic as well, potentially going to Man City. So I don't think these deals are impossible to do, but I just think the wages are going to be the main sticking point here. I mean, 350k a week for Jadon Sancho just doesn't represent any sort of value in what he's shown in the past year. That's just the honest truth of it. Let's talk about Romeo Lavia of Southampton now. Ben Jacobs saying that Spurs are well aware of Romeo Lavia's situation.
Which, guess what? He wants to leave probably at 19. He's a good midfielder for Southampton. I don't really see this one being done for Tottenham, to be honest. As much as I actually really rate him, I just feel like it's probably right player, wrong time, I feel right now, just because we have some young midfielders already at the club. I don't see Tottenham, and also I do think it'll take a fairly significant outlay for Spurs to get him. I wouldn't be against us getting him. I just don't see us being willing to part with at least 30 million, say, to get him in.
I think 30 million for Lavia would be an absolutely incredible deal. 19 years of age, got a big future ahead of him. He's already shown big quality in the Premier League as well. I really believe in Lavia, and I think he's going to be a top quality player. And I think right now, 30 million, in a few years' time, it will seem like a sniff for someone like Romeo Lavia.
I'm not saying it would be a bad deal. I'm just saying I don't see Tottenham doing it.
Yeah, but I think they should seriously consider it. They really should. Next up is...
Would you sanction that at the cost of like another midfielder who would start?
I would over Højbjerg, yeah.
No, I mean like over signing. Like if you're spending 30 million on someone like Lavia, and he's not necessarily going to come straight to the first team. But that money might come out of a midfielder who would sign to start.
Depends who. Depends who you're talking about.
A number 10 or a number 6.
Not a number 10, because I think we need a number 10 more importantly than someone like Lavia. But I don't see why we couldn't sign a number 10 and then maybe move on Højbjerg and then bring in a Lavia to replace him.
You'd sign Lavia to replace Højbjerg?
Yeah.
Okay, so then what about Basuma, Bentancur, Sarr and Skip?
Well, yeah, there are a lot of them, but I'm talking about replacing a player. I think Skip is an interesting one. I think Skip should probably maybe even go out on loan next season or something to get consistent minutes. Pape Matar is an interesting one. I think Lavia is ahead of Pape Sarr and potentially even Skip at the moment.
He is, but Is that just because he's played more?
Potentially. I don't know, but I just think it would be a really good signing, and I'd be well up for it.
Like, would you, if from Tottenham's point of view, why spend 30 million on Lavia when you have Sarr there?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, but I think when you're looking at Lavia, I think his ceiling, what he's shown so far, is higher than Pape Matar. Not saying I want to throw Sarr to the side, but I think like the more quality players that you bring in, the better it is for the club. And I think, you know, you can look at a situation in 3-4 years' time where you can have both of them in the starting lineup.
I just think that if I'm thinking from a Tottenham point of view, I would probably rather put my eggs in the Sarr basket just because he's here already, and we've seen in snippets what he can do. Maybe if Postecoglou can give him more game time, we can see him really grow, rather than spend 30 million on another 19-year-old and pretend. And I guess you could have them battle it out, but then all of a sudden one of them's going to fall by the wayside, I feel. And you have Sarr there waiting, you might as well put your trust in him if you really believe in him, rather than going and spending 30 million on another 19-year-old.
But again, like if we've got players like Højbjerg and Ollie Skip in the side, right, in the squad, I'd much prefer Lavia than probably both of them in the squad. So I would actually accept selling, not even loaning out, selling Skip and bringing in Lavia.
Fair enough. I don't think I would. I'd rather just keep Skip.
Yeah, I think your opinions might change on that in the next 2-3 years' time,
Maybe.
but we'll see. Next up is Alex Scott. Ben Jacobs says that 8 different clubs have inquired about Alex Scott in the last year, and Tottenham are one of them. There is a very realistic possibility that they make a move on him. The fee being asked is around 30 to 35 million pounds.
A lot of money. Again, similar discussion to the Lavia one, I guess. I mean, this one's more directed at Skip maybe than Sarr, because Sarr's a bit younger. Like, would you sign Scott for 30 million, and then what do you do with Skip? Because that would be his probably position, I guess. So
I think they're a bit different players. I think Alex Scott will probably play a bit further up the pitch and like to get involved more in the attacking phases of the game as opposed to Skip.
But I don't see Skip being the number 6. I see him being one of the 8s.
Yeah, but I think he would be more kind of an 8/10 kind of thing. The more going forward.
In that case, I don't see us signing Scott and a Madison or a Scott.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So then again, you're sacrificing something else. It's a lot of money. If it was cheaper, I think it's a goer. And according to Ben Jacobs, if Paratici was still here, this deal would 100% be on this summer. He said Paratici was a massive fan of him and would have gone for him this summer. But with him not being here, it might change things a bit. I don't see us spending 30 million on him and signing another number 10
yeah, but
big money.
I think it could be a situation where, let's say Madison, for argument's sake, goes to Newcastle. Eze, we're priced out of an Eze deal, then we rely on an Alex Scott.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Next up, let's talk about Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Ben Jacobs says that from what I'm told from sources, Pierre is waiting to find out if he has a future at the football club.
Which is interesting. I guess he has to have conversations with Postecoglou. He's got 2 years left where he's really at, and how he's valued, how he sees him fitting in, because he is a bit of a like Højbjerg in terms of how he fits into the system. It's not 100% clear. Is he going to be the 6? Is he going to be one of the 8s? You would think he's probably going to be the box-to-box midfielder, but does Postecoglou see him like that? You know, Postecoglou's got to make his own judgments. Does he think he doesn't really fit in, and maybe he wants to maybe cash in on him, and maybe that's the best for everyone? Or maybe he sees him and thinks, look, he's one of the few players who still has some leadership, one of the leadership roles, and maybe it's worth keeping him around even though the quality might not be as good. Or maybe he sees more quality than a lot of people give him credit for. So I think it's very much up in the air, but I guess they need to sit down and have those conversations.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out, because we just don't know like who Ange is going to fancy, who doesn't fancy. I'm sure time will tell, but he's going to have to make his decision sooner rather than later if he wants players in before pre-season and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see if this one kind of gathers legs quite soon. Next up, Harry Kane. Jamie Jackson of The Guardian saying that Manchester United have ended their interest in Harry Kane for this summer.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense. They don't want to get embroiled in a transfer saga. He's going to be a lot of money for a player who's soon to be 30 as well, with 1 year left on his contract. So I think it makes sense that they're just not going to pursue it because it's going to cost too much money right now. But I think with this happening and with Mbappe coming on the market, so I do think that's going to cool Madrid's interest, or so it seems anyway. I do think that, I don't see where else he goes, so I do think that pretty much would mean he's staying this summer. I don't see any other situation of him staying. The only question is, is he going to sign the contract now? That's going to be up in the air. But I wouldn't completely rule it out now, because if Madrid are going to get Mbappe, I don't see them signing another striker for big money in the foreseeable. And depends on what United do. If United sign a big striker this summer in place of Kane, like let's say they sign an Osimhen, I don't see them going for Harry Kane, albeit he would be on a free. But I see Kane, like the chances of him staying at Tottenham really increasing, like long term.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just can't see him signing that contract unless there's clear vision and path of Spurs, getting back on track. I just can't see him signing that contract. And yeah, I know you're saying like if Man United sign Osimhen, a big striker, and Real Madrid are getting Mbappe and stuff like that, I still don't think they pass up the move to sign Harry Kane on a free transfer. I think there's just some things you just don't pass up, and to sign a world-class player, one of the best, if not the best, number 9 in world football on a free, you just don't pass that up.
I'm not saying they wouldn't want him on a free. I'm sure they would, but I'm just saying with them signing big strikers, I think the Harry Kane will look at those situations and think maybe I am better off just seeing out my career at Tottenham and being their main man rather than going on a free to one of these other clubs potentially and battling it out with one of these other strikers potentially. Maybe he'll see it that way. I think that possibility opens up a bit more, and we'll have to see how things progress with Postecoglou. I think a lot of things depend on how the season goes and what direction we're heading in. Obviously, it's too early to say right now how it's going to look this season, and maybe we will start heading in the right direction. If we are, then I do think that increases the chances of him staying long term. Because I felt like if even if we were heading in the right direction, if the spot was open at Man United or Madrid, like they don't sign a striker this summer, I still think he thinks twice about signing a new contract because he knows he can go start every week for Man United. But if the spots aren't open, I think all of a sudden, I think he thinks a lot harder about signing a contract at Tottenham.
Yeah, but again, like if you can get Harry Kane on a free, I still think like if you sign on Osimhen, you find a way to put Harry Kane and change the system a little bit, put him in the number 10, maybe just behind Osimhen, or put them up front together. There's different ways to deal with the situation. And if someone, like I said before, if someone like Harry Kane is available on a free, you go and get him, no matter who you are.
I'm saying from Harry Kane's perspective, I'm not saying from the
yeah, but it'll be about Ten Hag, talking through to him how he can fit him into the system, and I think probably he'll accept that to go into a better club that is more likely to win trophies.
I guess my point was before these things happening, depending on if Madrid do sign Mbappe and if United sign a striker, but before these things, even if Tottenham were on the right path this season, I still think it was unlikely he was going to sign a contract, in my opinion. But now, if these things do fall into place, if Tottenham are on the right path, it increases the chances of him signing a new contract.
What about someone like, on a free transfer, someone like Liverpool could easily come into the picture, They need a number 9, potentially a big number 9. They don't have like a natural number 9 at the moment.
6 forwards at the moment.
I know, but Harry Kane is much better than all of them.
I know, but I don't think... I mean, look, maybe they would. Obviously,
on a free transfer, they're not going to stump out loads of money for him.
I mean, yeah, look, anything's possible, but I don't think he's got his heart set on joining Liverpool. I think maybe Man United potentially... Why
Man United over Liverpool?
Because they're a bigger club, and I think that they've got more gravitas at the moment. And I think
the
way they like to play as well, I think is probably more suited to him, a bit more possession-based and this high-pressing stuff. Look, he could join Liverpool, but I just think they got 6 forwards at the moment. I don't see them... I mean, they obviously on a free... Anyone you said you want Kane on a free, I'm sure anyone would take him, but I don't see them like being of serious interest right now.
I don't see why they wouldn't be, to be honest. I think they'd be mad not to, try their hardest to get Harry Kane on a free. I really would. I think any club would be mad not to try their hardest to get Harry Kane on a free, no matter who they have in those roles. I really believe that. But anyway, let's talk about Dejan Kulusevski. Romeo Agresti is saying that Kulusevski wants to stay at Tottenham Hotspur ahead of the upcoming Premier League season. Spurs and Juventus are due to meet in the next few days to discuss lowering the €35 million buyout option for Dejan Kulusevski. I mean, if we piss this about, we've got 2 weeks to really get this clause down. Otherwise, it runs out. I mean, surely you would think that another club would just come in and just pay that money for someone like Decky.
You say that. According to Lee Ryder, who writes for the Newcastle Chronicle, he claims that Newcastle have been offered the chance to sign Kulusevski this summer if Tottenham don't take up the option. So all of a sudden you are getting rumours of other clubs circling around it. He'd be a brilliant signing for Newcastle. Imagine replacing Almiron with Kulusevski on the right-hand side and a younger player as well. I just think we're mad if we let this opportunity pass us by.
Yeah.
Even if it means we have to pay the full price, which is, I think it says 35 million euros, which is what, 30 million pounds or something like that. Like, I just think it's worth it for a player of his quality. Who are you getting for that kind of money who's better than him? I just don't understand.
No one. There's no one.
At that age.
There are reports, though, that we spoke about yesterday that maybe Ange Postecoglou's not fully convinced about him, though. Maybe that's the situation why we're not really doing it right now. Yeah,
like I can't think of any other explanation why we're sitting here on the 15th of June when the option's been there for 6 months at least, but especially the last 2 weeks since the season's ended. Like, why have we not?
They'll take it down to the last day.
Why? Why though?
Because
why
that's
have we not
Spurs.
just push the button and just sign him, get it over and done with him so we can plan for the season?
Yeah, I completely agree. Next up, Harry Winks. Ben Jacobs says there is interest in Harry Winks from FC Lorient in France.
Yeah, I was watching the podcast yesterday on Last Word on Spurs, and he said that there was really strong interest from Leicester and Southampton before they got relegated. And obviously now they'd gone down. Like, would Winks want to join the Championship right now? I mean, for me, I think it might be worth him just taking a step back and having those consistent minutes in England to prove himself again and earn another move to the Premier League, because no one in the Premier League is taking him at the moment. Maybe FC Lorient.
What about Luton? Luton should take him.
Maybe Luton. Yeah, I mean, if they're interested, I'd happily sell him. I would sell him to anyone who wants him. But right now, his injury problems, that's the main thing, isn't it? It's I mean, obviously his performance level as well, but his injury problems means he's not on the pitch anywhere near enough at the moment. He missed pretty much the whole first half of the season for Sampdoria, albeit apparently his performances have been pretty decent in the second half of the season.
Called him the washing machine.
He was never going to even though apparently they wanted to keep him, he was never going to go back there since they got relegated. He's never going to go to Serie B. You might as well join the Championship if he's going to do that. So maybe FC Lorient would be a good move for him. Maybe we'd be willing to give him for free. Maybe that's the best thing. If I was him, I would consider a Championship move if there's one available. Yeah,
and you think about like those teams, Southampton and Leicester, probably one of them are going to come straight back up. So if he picks the right one, and he could be a Premier League footballer again in a couple of years' time. Next up, last but not least, let's talk about these quotes from Richarlison out in Brazil duties, talking about those links to Real Madrid. And he said, Real Madrid links? Of course, every player wants to wear the shirt of Real Madrid. It's the biggest club in the world. But I have a club, a contract. I have to prove why they bought me for such a high price. That's the right mentality to have, isn't it?
Exactly. You can't be thinking about big moves when you've got one Premier League goal this season. I can't see Madrid stumping up a serious fee or even wanting to sign him when he's on that kind of goal record. So I think he's right. He has to make sure his performance levels are up to standard and of what he can expect of himself. He has to expect more from himself. He has to improve different facets of his game, and then he can start to think about other things. But right now, his performance level is at a very, very bad level, so he can't think about moving or bigger moves, all these different... It was right. Who was it who was saying he should be playing for Real Madrid? Was it Emerson, maybe? Was it Emerson who said he sees himself playing for Madrid or Barcelona? And I was like,
that was Emerson's dad, wasn't it? I think those were fake quotes.
Maybe it was someone else then. I'm trying to remember. It was someone who was like playing badly, and he says, "I see myself playing for Madrid" or something.
No, I think you are thinking of Emerson, but those were like the quotes from his dad from a podcast or something. I don't think that was actually true.
But anyway, he needs to get himself right. Maybe if he starts performing for Tottenham. I mean, even then, he signed a long contract. He should be thinking about achieving his objectives for Tottenham before thinking about anything else. But it seems as though that is his mentality.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you have it. That is your Tottenham update for today. Let me know in the comment section below regarding all your thoughts around all the news stories we've brought to you today. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.